Best thing I've done is federal way, or is it a different question?
No, the same question. Name your proudest accomplishments that specifically benefit the Federal Way area in the past year. So you might be able to scratch Federal Way.
Well, I'm on the Pierce County Council, and they're in King County, so I'll talk about something I did in Pierce County, is something we didn't do. You know, back in the good years in 2006, 2005, Executive John Ladberg proposed that we needed a new transportation administration building, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. It was going to cost us $150 million. And we had the money, but, you know, with my fellow council members, we canceled that project. We banked the money, and because of it today, we are in good fiscal condition. One thing you have to learn is to not to say yes to everything, and we've learned to say no. You know, just because you have the money, you have to, in those good years, bank money and make sure that you have enough when the rainy day comes. Thank you.
How going forward?
Well, first of all, the business community tells me they need certainty. This cap and tax thing that passed, we got to make sure that's nixed. We got to make sure that this idea of a card check where you can become your employees, if you're non-union shop, will become union by just having people sign the cards. The next thing you know, you're unionized. They're afraid of that. These healthcare regulations are costing businesses a lot of money. We need to repeal and replace the Obamacare. We need certainty. We need to know that banks and the regulators out there are going to be allowed to lend and make loans that aren't perfect, aren't risky, but that maybe have a slight level of risk to it. That's what we need to do. Talking to the business people, they need certainty. They're afraid of what's coming down the pike. Here at the state level, they're worried about L&I costs, unemployment compensation costs. New environmental regulations are going to come out. They're talking about this new ozone regulations. It really could hurt businesses. Thank you.
Well, I think one of the base things we need to do is train and educate our workers so that they have the skills necessary to compete in the global economy. I think that's one of the great challenges that we have right now. The rapid pace of change because of the increase of global competition has put an enormous amount of pressure on blue-collar workers. You know, I think about my father. He had a high school education, didn't really do much until he was in his late 20s, and then found a job with a good company that was basically physical labor, and it didn't change much during the 32 years that he did it. He got in with United Airlines and he was good to go. That doesn't work for today's workers. They need applicable skills, and we need to start at the K-12 level. We have too many children coming through our school system right now that get out, that don't have skills that are applicable to the job place. We need to get them into internships. We need to get businesses working with the schools, with also our community and technical colleges to get them the training. One of the biggest things I worked on was to get training funds for laid-off workers and also for our veterans leaving the military after serving, particularly in Iraq and Afghanistan, set them up with apprenticeships so that they can get the training they need to become productive parts of our economy. There's a whole lot of other things we need to do on the economy. Hopefully there'll be other questions on that.
Congressman, you spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. How can voters in your district tangibly measure the effectiveness of your work?
Issue by issue, first of all, I want to point out that I spend the overwhelming majority of my time here in the district. My family made a conscious choice to live here, not in Washington, D.C., to go to the schools here, and to be active in this community. My son plays soccer with the North Point Soccer Club. My daughter's in the British Academy Dance in Federal Way. We are connected to this community. As far as the concrete results that I've delivered, it's really area by area. Highline School District had a problem for years. They could not get the agreement to get the soundproofing that was due to them from the second runway. Forget the third runway back in the 70s. I worked with the port and the school district. They didn't like each other, still don't for that matter, but we got them together, got the resources necessary to do a major retrofit of the schools in this district because of the leadership I show. We've worked on the Howard Hanson Dam issue. A year ago, there was a 1 in 3 chance of a massive flood in the valley, which was a big, big problem for our businesses. Now, we worked in a bipartisan way to get the dam shored up. It's over 1 in 100 because of that work. I could go on, but I don't have time. I feel like I should just toss it. Go.
Maybe again.
The question was, you spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. How can voters in your district tangibly? So it's a rebuttal of the...
Oh, okay, rebuttal. Well, I give credit to the congressman keeping his family here. That is good news. And I plan to do the same thing. Actually, my wife will travel with me, and will travel back with me. We're fortunate our kids are all grown, all married, and having lots of babies. It comes down to what you want your congressman is not about bringing home the bacon. We need a congressman right there that's going to set priorities and learn to live within its means. So I tell people, if you think you're sending me back there to bring home the stuff, that carcass has been picked clean a long time ago. We truly, really need to say, you know, that the federal government isn't going to be the person, the entity that's going to bring us home things. We have to say no. It's learn to say no to special interests. There's three things, and I know the Olympia kind of casket me for there's three things the federal government does have a role. The dams, that's good news, Howard Hanson, and also the Mud Mountain Dam, the military, and the I-5 corridor, Interstate 5. Those are the three things which I'll focus my work on. Thank you.
Name one example in your public service where you voted or acted against your party's basic principles. How can voters ensure you will vote for the greater good and not just because of your party you vote for?
Well, I can't think where the party said we couldn't do something on the county council. Everything we've done on the county council for the last 7 years, and I know a lot of people from King County, has been truly bipartisan. But I've worked hard to make sure that we do good things for people and live within our budgets and the means. And I don't think there's been ever a time where anybody in the Democrat Party wanted to do something that we didn't do. We've really worked hard to make sure we have a congenial relationship. And to the point where, you know, Barbara Gelman is chairman of one of the committees, then she's a Democrat. We have, on the Rules Committee, we have Tim Farrell. I made sure that he got on there, on the, you know, even though we had we only have 2 Democrats in the county council out of 7. So we make sure that I did that, and everybody said, no, we don't need to do that. I said, yes, we do need to do that. But I've always worked in a bipartisan way, and I don't think the party has ever told me one way or another what to do.
Thank you. Actually, answering that question, I'll do a back-end add-on to the answer to the previous question. My proudest accomplishment, from a macro perspective, my proudest accomplishment was the balanced budget agreement that I voted for in 1997 that led to 4 straight surpluses, and that was something the majority of Democrats did not support. But on issue after issue, I don't simply follow the party. Now, I'm a Democrat. I've explained a little bit why. You know, my blue-collar background, my support for unions and what they've done for me, and how important it is, I think, to maximize opportunity for everybody. But particularly on fiscal issues, we had a couple of additional sort of second stimulus bills in late last year, mid this year, that would have cost well over $150 billion that weren't paid for. I didn't vote for them. Voted no on both of those. When people wanted to investigate what was going on with Charlie Rangel, on the Democratic side voted against allowing that investigation. I voted in favor of it because I thought it was the right thing to do to investigate and get to the bottom of that, which eventually is where everybody wound up. And even on the stimulus issue, and voting against those 2 second jobs bills, I did eventually vote for a much cheaper one that was paid for. That's the fiscal approach.
With an ever-increasing national deficit, what is your position concerning extending the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy?
Well, first of all, I reject a little bit the premise of the question. I don't like this, well, let's tax the rich, let's tax the wealthy. I mean, artificially picking a number and saying that person is rich or wealthy and taxing them, I think misses the point. We do, however, need to have a revenue stream that supports what we need to do as a society. And we are $1.3 trillion deficit this year, $13 trillion in debt. So we have to take a responsible across-the-board position. I don't support permanently extending all of the Bush tax cuts. I believe that we should extend most of them. No, I don't support permanently extending the lowering of the highest rate. But I'll tell you something else again. Our tax conversation should not just be about the Bush tax cuts. We need to simplify our tax code. Get rid of as many deductions, as many write-offs as possible. We have the most confusing tax code you've ever seen. Dick rightly talked earlier about the need for certainty in the business community. There is no greater example of uncertainty the business community faces than our tax system. Whatever it is, we should simplify it, lock it in place, and move forward.